Hey there, creepy peeps. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back. If you're returning, as it is the beginning of December, like I do every single month in the beginning of the month, I do a creepy book club review. For the previous month, I went a really weird way of saying that. We're going to be talking about Fledgling by Octavia Butler. Really quick, before I get into any of the book review stuff, a little bit of housekeeping, book club wise. I'll put a time code here if you want to skip over it. It's really not going to be that long though. Anybody who is in the book club or is interested in being in the book club, I have a poll for you guys. I'll link it in the description. It's about like the book club in general, like how we discuss the books, how we pick the books, that sort of thing, you know, just to mix things up a little bit. And you know, I want to operate the book club how you guys want to operate the book club. I'm going to be running that poll all through December so I can start, you know, like making the changes in the new year. So that's still active. You can still go answer the questions if you want. Also, we already picked our books for the first half of 2020, so January through June. I'll link that post in the description also if you want to take a look at what we're reading. If you want to see what we're reading for the first half of the year and maybe get your hands on some of the books to read along with us, you can do so. Okay, that was it. On to the book review. Shori is a mystery. Found alone in the woods, she appears to be a little black girl with traumatic amnesia and near fatal wounds. But Shori is a 53-year-old vampire with a ravenous hunger for blood, the lost child of an ancient species of near immortals who live in dark symbiosis with humanity. Genetically modified to be able to walk in daylight, Shori now becomes the target of a vast plot to destroy her and her kind. And in the final apocalyptic battle, her survival will depend on whether all humans are bigots or all bigots are human. I teased it in my November recap on Monday, but I was really not a fan of this. To date, my least favorite book that I've read so far for Creepy Book Club. So first and foremost, I guess let's talk about Shori, because she's the main character in this. Shori appears to be a little girl, looks human essentially, like all, you know, like most vampires do, they look human. So to everybody else, she looks like an 11-year-old girl-ish is kind of how she's described in the book. But in reality, like I said, she's part not human, so she's part something else. So she's technically 53 years old in the book, which normally wouldn't have a problem with. Here's where I have the problem. When the book starts, it starts literally when Shori wakes up with her amnesia. She doesn't know where she is, doesn't know what she is, blah. She comes across this man named Wright, who is like 23 or 24, something like that. He's 20-something. 20-something-year-old man. And so Shori bites him, doesn't kill him, just bites him. Apparently there's something with like their venom, the vampires like venom in this book, that makes it pleasurable. And essentially within the first quarter of this book, Shori and this Wright fellow have sex like 6 times. That's not the exact number, but it's a lot. Really, 1 time would have been too much, because you're just, as you're reading it, you have the imagery of an 11-year-old being plowed into by like a 23-year-old man. Not a fan of that. That's not really interesting to me to read. That's not really fun for me to read. And it just happens a lot. It happens a lot in this book, and I'm, no, that's not for me. And like I said, there's like this whole thing with like the vampires, or the Ina, that's what they're called, INA, that's like the species. There's something like in their venom that kind of takes away their like symbionts free will, essentially. Like they kind of become addicted to it, like they need it. and want it, but they, you know, they don't necessarily. I'm not explaining it very well, but so there's, you know, the whole sex thing, I guess, could be part of like this theme of like free will in the book. It's explored in many different forms in this book, the idea of free will, but I feel like there are many other ways that it's explored in this book that we didn't need the sex. And it's not in graphic detail. This isn't a romance book, so it's not graphic or anything like that, but again, it's just like that imagery in your brain as you're reading it of this 11-year-old looking girl, and you know, yeah, don't want to say it again. I just feel like it wasn't necessary to the book. It wasn't necessary. I don't think it added to any of the themes. They could have been explored and were explored in many different ways in the book without it being there. So yeah, first and foremost, like, and like I said, it happens so much in the first quarter of this book, so it just really turned me off from the rest of it. Like the rest of reading this book was kind of like pulling teeth. Once the sex stuff starts slowing down, finally, like halfway through the book, the rest, it's just boring. Actually, we're following Shori around, who, like I said, has amnesia and doesn't remember all 53 years of her life thus far. And spoiler alert, she doesn't regain almost any of her memory. She regains like little bits here and there, or like she'll see something or somebody will say something and it'll kind of like trigger a memory and she'll remember things, but essentially she gets nowhere. So it's like, what's the point? Essentially it's just following around this girl with amnesia, and we know as much as she does, obviously, because she's the narrator, and yeah, and we learn nothing along with her. So it's just like kind of like, just like, what's the point? When she finally encounters other Ina or other vampires, she obviously asks them a lot of questions to find more about what she is and how like these little communities, because they all have like little communities and like families all over with their like symbionts and things. It's a whole thing. So she asks them a lot of questions, and that leads to like paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs of just like, I'm sorry, boring ass vampire lore descriptions that is like goes nowhere. Like she learns all of this information, like if we're quantifying it here, so we have like 100% of the book, she learns all this information about Ina and about vampires, and she uses like 10% of it. Part of me kind of thinks maybe Octavia E. Butler, I don't know this, I'm just guessing, that maybe she intended this to be a series or a trilogy or something, or at least a duology, something. There's so much description and setup that goes nowhere that you would think that there would be a sequel somewhere. Unfortunately, this is the last book that Octavia E. Butler wrote before she passed, and from what I know, it was like a sudden thing. I read a couple of different things, like it wasn't like conclusive how she died, but it's like the most common like answer is she had a stroke or something. I didn't read too much on it, so don't take my word on this. So I don't know if she ever intended to keep going with this. I would hope so, because if you worked through this entire book and this is it, like, the last third of the book is this whole like vampire court thing, which is the final battle that the summary that I read off the back here teases. There's no final battle. It's a vampire court, essentially, to kind of like prosecute the Ina family that are the bigots that are attacking Shori because she is genetically modified and she can walk in the daylight. So, and she also happens to be black, so it's like a whole big like allegory for racism, which is all well and good. And you think a vampire court would be interesting or kind of, you know, but again, it's just kind of boring. The themes are super straightforward, and they're, you know, it's not like she did a bad job of exploring them in the movie, and it's definitely a creative way to explore the idea of bigotry with vampires. That's cool. I like that. It's just really boring. I think only one other group member wrote their thoughts on this, which for this one, I'm not that mad about because I personally didn't think it was that good of a book. So Feather wrote a review here. So they wrote, if I could read it correctly, I was so conflicted about this book. I love the concept and how unique this was. There's so much to unpack here, but it also fell a little short to me as far as character development and how I did or didn't connect to them. And it's really hard to love a book when you just aren't invested in the people. Yes, completely agree. Which was such a shame for me because I was really fascinated by the spin on this well-worn genre. Yeah, even if you're not thinking of it in terms of like a metaphor for like bigotry and racism, it's still a really unique take on just vampires in general. Like I said, just not, in my opinion, and I guess Feather's opinion also, executed well. It was a shame. I was really excited to read Octavia E. Butler. I think I should have picked Kindred because that's the book, whenever anyone's talking about this author, everyone's talking about Kindred. That is apparently her best book or her most loved book. I'm still gonna read that because as soon as I got done reading this, I went through just like Goodreads and a bunch of other blogs and stuff, and we were reading reviews on this. And from what I understand, a lot of people were saying this book, Fledgling, compared to all of her other works, this feels like, I saw a couple people say, if this feels like it was written by somebody else, that's how different it is from her other novels. So I'm still gonna read Kindred because I hear so many good things about it, and I'm determined. Like I said before, I've been wanting to read Octavia E. Butler forever, and it was just a dumb decision on my part to do Fledgling. So I blame myself for that one. I should have picked Kindred. Yeah, so I'm giving this a 1 out of 5. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. On Goodreads in general, it has a 3.8 out of 7. On barnesandnoble.com, it has a 4.3. And on Amazon, it has a 4.2. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Fledgling. If you want to, I know December has already started, but you should still have time to pick up and read our December book, which is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This is one, been on my TBR forever. One of my coworkers actually recommended it to me also forever ago. Essentially, the way she sold it to me was like horror mermaids. So, and that's killer mermaids. That's all I needed to know. The link is in the description. You can see what our January, February, March, April, May, and June books are for 2020. If you can't read along with us in December but want to join us for January, you can see what we're reading. Kicking off 2020 with one of the most controversial books ever. So I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a Creepy Peep today. Post videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can ring that notification bell down there to be notified every time I post a video, even though it doesn't always work. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay strange. Bye! This video is brought to you by all these lovely creepy patron peeps that you see listed here. If you want to find out the perks to being a creepy patron peep yourself, you can check out that link in the description. There's a whole bunch of fun links in the description, so you can follow me on all my social media, Goodreads, Letterboxd, all that good stuff, so make sure you check out the description box. Thanks for watching. I love you. Bye!